Hello, hello, everybody. I am here today with the great Chris Lawley over on that side, I guess, on the stream. And we're
The
going to
great
talk
right.
iPad and Mac. What?
I was just being narcissistic.
How you doing, man?
I am doing great. I am really excited. We have an Apple event tomorrow.
Ooh,
I have a bunch of stuff I'm working on, and I think it's an interesting time to be an Apple uh fan commentator. What am I? I don't know.
enthusiast?
I'm
Is that
to do what I
derogatory?
do. Maybe I
You're
don't.
a
I don't
blogger?
honestly. I
No.
still do, no, no, definitely not a blogger.
I know,
I'm
I'm
definitely not a
kidding.
journalist. Teacher? I don't know. Anyways, I'm like super excited about like the stuff that's happening right now, and I think we're gonna dive into that and some other stuff, and you know, get into whether the Mac can actually replace an iPad. I don't. What even is that?
It's my clicky title. No, I mean, I just always like that perspective. I remember that. Well, I don't remember who did that piece. Was it written in handwritten notes on the iPad? Was it a Simcoe that was like
Was it Serenity Caldwell that did the Apple Pencil review? Is that what you're talking about?
maybe? I thought there was one that separately, or I'm not sure if these are the same thing, but somebody just like wrote the review of like from the perspective of starting from the iPad, and he's like, oh yeah, weird. Like you have to. There's two screens that are attached to each other, which
Oh
makes it more
yeah.
limited and like it just kind of helped reframe the angle of what you expect from a computer.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that, but I cannot remember for the life of me who did
Yeah,
that.
fair.
Oh, I feel so bad. I'm so sorry,
I
person
mean,
that did
Serenity
that.
also did awesome stuff, but
Yeah, no, I
Ashes
remember
in my
Serenity.
notes.
One of the most memorable things she did was when the first Apple Pencil came out. She did a whole sketch review. Like she drew a cartoon
That's what.
of
Okay,
her
yeah,
review with the Apple Pencil,
and made
and that was pretty
videos
cool.
too, like on
Oh
the
yeah,
iPad. I feel like
oh yeah,
you like owe her. No, I'm just kidding. She paved the way. Maybe
yeah, yeah.
due
I
respect. Serenity Caldwell. Why are we saluting?
Yeah, I don't know. That felt really weird. I feel super awkward right now.
Don't worry,
I'm
that's streaming with me. Is it's always awkward. So,
Hey, I'm just an awkward person. Like, you
well,
know, that's
I mean, it happens. So I feel like I'm super interested because we are both just like iPad people, and also have been very much into the Mac lately. And
what
I,
me the Mac?
I
No,
mean, maybe I remember I do just love seeing like our DMs where you're like worried that people are gonna think you're a traitor, and
I'm
it's
literally
totally
like
fair.
side eyeing my like maxed out 14-inch MacBook Pro right
Exactly.
now.
I mean,
Like,
I feel like that's why I think sort of the title of this was tongue in cheek because it is like the best time to use both. And I think that's what's super exciting about universal control. Oh, wait. Okay, hold on. My cat is trying to come in, and I feel like I should get him.
yeah, I mean, it's a YouTube video. If there's not a cat in it, can it even go viral? I mean, I don't know. I don't have a cat. Anyways, I'm gonna monologue here for a minute. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Sound off in the chat. Looks like we got some cool people. I'm just coming at you
Yeah, nice to see you. Hey, Oliver.
live from the showroom floor.
So, I
Or I
mean,
could have done Good Morning Vietnam.
let's just start with universal control because say hi
Yeah,
to Oliver,
I'm
everybody.
I'm really excited about Universal Control. I kind of feel like Universal Control is actually part of a trifecta of features. So I'm actually working on a video about Universal Control right now. So I'll just like spoil what the video is about for the people in the chat or that are watching. So there's Universal Control, which means you can control if you're sitting at your Mac and you got your keyboard and mouse paired to your Mac and you're working, you can move the cursor over to your iPad and start using that cursor, mouse, trackpad, and that keyboard now on your iPad. Really cool feature. Really awesome. I'm super excited about it. I loaded up the betas. Shouldn't have done it because it actually caused a really big issue for me, but we won't get into that. But loaded up the betas, put it all on there, and it's been really cool to play with. I'm making a video about it, but I also think the other two features, the key features that are also a part of Universal Control, is handoff. So handoff has been in
Oh
iOS
yeah.
and macOS for a while. You might see the little icon in the dock from like an app that's like, hey, I didn't put that there. And it's usually at the end of the dock. You can click on that and it'll like shift content from one computer to another. And then the other feature is Sidecar, the ability to use the iPad as an external monitor, which is something I've been using quite a bit when I'm editing video on my laptop screen and not sitting out like I'm pointing at it, but obviously you can't see it. I have one of those LG 5K 2K monitors, those
Hmm.
one ultra wide monitors. It's actually a really cool monitor, but I don't always like to sit at my desk. Sometimes I like to go work outside or go work in other places. So I'll use my iPad as a second display so I get a little more screen real estate
Nice.
with Sidecar. So I think those three features work together really nicely to bridge the gap between the Mac and the iPad and show that they can work together. It doesn't have to be just the Mac or just the
Exactly.
iPad. They can be in harmony.
No, it's
Look at
one
me
or the
singing
other.
Kumbaya.
You have to pick one. I mean, I think obviously just
I
the
mean,
main
we all know
point that a lot of
the
people are trying to
iPad
get
is
at,
the best.
it would be cool to have one computer that could do every single thing that you ever needed, but
Yeah.
also, I feel like a lot of people do end up with multiple devices, and having them all work together in harmony is also very cool, especially when there's some that are suited better for one task and some that for another. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And for almost 5 years, I was iPad only. Like, I had Macs like, I had, like, a Mac Mini server for a little bit. Actually, I still have that Mac Mini, but, like, I've had the server, I had a MacBook Pro that sat in a drawer for a while. So, like, I had Macs during that time, but I just used my iPad for everything, and it was great. It was fantastic. But then, whatever, I'll just say it. LumaFusion, kinda it stopped working for me. That is the
yeah.
nicest way I can put it. That is the nicest, most polite way I
Okay.
can put it. Ye
I will preemptively defend them. And didn't you buy like an incredibly fancy camera? So like,
no, that was after I bought the
okay,
MacBook
that's
Pro.
right.
So this
But
was
you were
when I was
planning
using
on
my
it too.
Canon EOS R, which is not a super fancy camera, not a super fancy. If Gary, the everyday dad, is still in the chat, he can back me up on this one. The EOS R is not a super complex camera at all.
That's fair.
And it worked fine through LumaFusion most of the time. But the second half of last year, when I was working on my iPad OS 15 walkthrough, a bunch of other videos, and I did my iPhone 13 Pro Max like Yosemite tour video, those videos just fell apart in LumaFusion. So I got to the point where I was just like, okay, this is affecting my business now. It was affecting me being able to deliver videos on time.
Totally.
So I was like, I got to do something else. And since there
Like being
is no
affected by
other,
bugs? I wouldn't know what that's like.
yeah, no, what?
Keep going, keep
No.
going. I'm sorry.
But no, it got to the point where I was just like, yeah, I can't deal with this anymore. Like, I physically can't put up with this because it's affecting my business. So I was like, what are my options? And since there are no other video editors on the iPad, Apple Final Cut, pretty please, pretty please, pretty please,
That would be
pretty
nice. Ooh, that would
pretty
be
please.
so cool if that happened tomorrow.
Dude, if that happens tomorrow and there's a monitor tomorrow and maybe 15.4 has some
You're like,
extra secret
why I'm
hidden
dropping the Mac. Make a really
Oh yeah, no. If I
thumbs
get
down for thumbnail.
if I get external monitor support tomorrow, a good monitor that doesn't cost more than 3 grand, and Final Cut for the iPad, um, I might sell my MacBook Pro,
I
but I'm
mean,
also enjoying using the Mac again. So I don't know. I would definitely go
it should
back to
be
the
why I'm thinking about selling my MacBook Pro.
Ooh, that would be good. That would be a good title. Why the Mac is dead to me.
Sorry, I'm just making all the faces, yeah, for you.
YouTube thumbnail
Preemptively.
face. Yeah, no,
I'm making fun of ourselves, by the way. I hope anybody doesn't think I'm
uh,
making fun of anyone else. It's
I
like
mean, you will never see a thumbnail of me doing.
I did the one, but I literally made that expression in the video because it was about me breaking my iPad the day after I bought it,
Yeah,
and so I was like, oh, and then I was like, okay, I actually did do that.
yeah, like that would be the thing. That is an acceptable one, but like anyways, if there's a monitor tomorrow, I'm buying it. If if the monitor costs less
Gary
than
is too.
$3,000, yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. He'll buy two. Come on. I'll probably honestly, if they're 27 inches and there's no Final Cut tomorrow, because I don't think the iPad will get dual monitor support. I think we'll be lucky if it gets single monitor support. But if it gets
Hmm.
if it gets single monitor support, Final Cut,
Oh,
and
you
we get a
think the
monitor.
iPad could do dual? I mean, I guess if it could have
No,
one,
no,
why
I don't
not
think
two?
the iPad will do dual, but if we don't get Final Cut tomorrow, I'll obviously for the iPad, I'll obviously have to be stick with the Mac for a little while. And if the monitors are 27 inches, I already measured it out and I could fit two
Yeah,
on my desk.
that's pretty sick.
Because I've been kind of used to a 32-inch monitor for a while now, so I don't know
Yeah,
if I
but
can
is it
get down.
what is it 4K still?
I think the rumor was it would be 5K because
No, but your current one, I mean.
oh, my current one is one of those ultra wide ones. It's technically 5K resolution across and
Fair.
2K resolution tall, but I use it in the 2X mode. So it's half that. It ends up being like 1080 up and then like something across,
Hmm.
but it's ultra sharp. Like it looks good.
Interesting.
Like looking at the resolution on paper, like it doesn't sound like it would be very sharp, but it is. Like LG
That's
did a
fair.
really good job with this monitor. The only issue is it's not one of the curved ones. So like you're kind of panning your head around, going
Hmm.
back and forth,
Yeah,
because
32
it's
is
so
pretty big,
wide.
unless you're at a
But
specific resolution.
the monitor I was using before this was 32 inches at a 16:9 aspect ratio, which is kind of what Apple always sticks to,
Hmm.
and that is like a perfect size. But that's what the Pro Display XDR is. So I don't think they would make.
I mean, it's all about the resolution and the
Yeah,
like
yeah.
actual. Because mine's like 4K, but I do 1440. I feel like we're getting into the weeds on this, but I
We
would
are, and we don't
absolutely buy
even
it
know if there's
too.
gonna be a monitor
True.
tomorrow, you know?
So
So, like, I'm just so excited for the potential of a monitor, and then maybe there might be some code in 15.4 because there is precedent for, getting big iPad features in a dot 4. I mean, look at 13.4 gave us cursor support, so
are we even on? I feel like now I'm second guessing which one we're on right now. What's the
we're on
current?
15.4 is the beta, is the current
Okay.
beta.
So
Yeah.
wouldn't it already have been leaked if because
No,
we're on
because
the last beta?
13.4, the cursor
They could
support
just stick
didn't
it
ship
in.
until the GM of that,
Yeah.
or the release candidate, whatever they
That
called them
doesn't
back
like
then.
require to be in the earlier betas
No,
for
because they
developers to
can put it
test.
in whenever they want. So what they probably did is they probably just didn't even have that code in the betas, and then they released it later on. So,
Fair.
um,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and by the way, Doc is like, "You making fun of me?" No, definitely not. I mean, there's faces to make, and that's why it's if you make a real
oh yeah,
face, that's what it's all about.
there's totally 100% faces to make. I just can't make those faces and like make them look serious without being like a total like looking like
Exactly.
making them look like a total joke or something like that. So that's why I don't do it. That's totally why I don't. Plus
Also, I
I
like
like
this.
product photography.
I thought this was a troll comment at first, but no, they're agreeing
Yeah.
with us, which is I love it.
Look,
I mean,
there are
obvious
just a
like
few
what you
things.
can't hold up a Mac like this and write on the screen. Like
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I would love to go back to being like mainly focused on the iPad and just like have a Mac Mini here for like Mac related stuff, like server related stuff, and not have a MacBook Pro anymore. Like
yeah,
that is definitely my ultimate goal is to go back to that. But I don't like there's some things that need to happen because now that I've had this fancy MacBook Pro, I don't want to compromise.
yeah,
I don't
that's
because
fair.
my workflow is so much faster with this MacBook Pro than it was on the iPad.
So this is where exactly now we're gonna say the exact opposite of what we started with.
Oh
Is
yeah, no,
I have the
absolutely.
exact same experience, and I
There's
pretty much always have. Is it's
yeah,
if you
it's
need to
balanced.
do I think especially like one of the biggest things that was sort of unsaid about, or maybe it was said, but just not as often, is like the iPad without workflow before wasn't good enough. And shortcuts is what made it, or workflow slash what became shortcuts is what made it for a lot of people
I
even
would say
feasible. And so like
I would say that and the share sheet. The share sheet was
totally.
the other big thing.
But like that
Because
kind of workflow was around when the share sheet
yeah,
first.
I mean
I mean
those
that's
were
like ancient
it
history
was
at
the
that point.
iOS 8. It was iOS 8 was the was share sheet 8 or 6.
I mean,
Now I'm saying it's
that's what I'm
8.
saying.
It
I
was
don't.
8
We're at
because we
15,
got
dude.
iOS 9. Yeah, I know. I used to have all that stuff memorized and I'm like, nope, can't anymore. I'm
I
an
mean, it
old
just
man.
doesn't. It is like, remember we got the share sheet, and it's like, not. It does. It just is like been around for so long, it almost is
It's
like
like
irrelevant in that way, or just I'm curious. Also, just being power users, that like I haven't thought about that, and some people hear the word share sheet and don't even know what we're talking about right now. So
yeah.
like,
But But yeah, I would say the share sheet was the beginning of like kind of iOS power user stuff because that was when it gave you the ability to send content from one app to another
yeah,
easily. I mean, you could technically do it in other ways, but it
Totally.
wasn't easy. But yeah, that and like workflow came out around that time, if I remember correctly.
Something
I
like
think
that.
so. I'm pretty sure it did.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Um,
been like 10 years at this point now, I think, or like
yep. And I
almost.
never got a workflow sticker.
Um, oh, really? I like might even have some. So,
Never
should have
gotten
asked
any.
me less when we met up that one time. But
I know.
so
Yeah.
I'm curious, specific. So you were just saying things are faster. Like, what particular parts are faster for you?
File management. That's a big
Oh
deal,
yeah,
especially when it comes to video editing. File management is key. Having your media organized, but the better your organization, the faster you'll be at editing.
because you were doing
Uh,
all that in LumaFusion in their
well,
like
I was
user media
dragging it.
folder.
I was using the user media folder in the Files app, and who is that slow?
Yeah.
It is not fast at all. Files needs a I think another thing that like in order to get me back to the iPad full time is Files needs like a ground up overhaul. Like
Have you
it
done
needs to
anything with
be
the shortcuts that's now
yeah, I
available?
have, but honestly, like anytime I start to do big stuff with it, it either like times out or crashes. So
That's fair. I
uh
mean,
it's-
also with the files, if you're doing video files, like I'm
yeah,
just
I mean,
curious what file management tasks are you trying to accomplish?
well, for me, it's just organizing video. So let me pull up a clip here. I will pull so in let me see here. So for me, the way I shoot things, I'm stalling.
Ru-
A 1 minute clip is almost 4 gigs.
I will at least. Sorry, I'm just saying. I'll follow up on if there's a stream tomorrow. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's why working with HDR cinema camera quality footage and like passing that through shortcuts, I I like almost I don't know. Do you think that they've optimized for that? Probably not. So at least I'm curious even more specifically, maybe like less with the files themselves, but like I don't know. I'm making excuses for them right now, which I totally shouldn't do, and it should work with anything. So that's totally dumb. Now that I just think about what I just said, but like I've been making like folders of like a roll, B roll sounds. Is that the kind of thing that you're doing with your file,
Yeah.
and then move them in just manually or something like that?
So when I was using LumaFusion to edit, I did like for the brief period where we had the iPad OS 15 file shortcut actions, I was using them to build out like a directory. So I'd have like A roll, B roll, music, sound effects, stuff like that. So I could just drag stuff into those folders. And that was nice. But on the Mac, it's not that hard to create a folder.
Fair.
So I don't really use that there. Like I just, right click new folder and, type it out and or you can just hit
Chris,
command N.
you're
Uh
doing something manually? No, I'm just kidding.
whatever. I mean it literally takes 2 seconds. It's not one of that big of a deal. But yeah, I don't know. I love the iPad. Like I've been accused since I got this MacBook Pro of betraying the iPad. I have not. Let me tell you that. I love the iPad, but
I
there
think you
gets to be
just
a point.
or you just like scaled out of Luma specifically.
Yeah, and honestly, that was the biggest thing. If Final Cut was on the iPad, I don't think I would have even like considered buying that MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
Um,
See, I'm not there, so I think that's what's funny. It's like I never really like I pretty specifically tried to say or avoid saying that I was iPad only because I was worried about giving the perception that I was and that I could get everything done. But like specifically, I do a lot in Airtable, and oh man, okay, so like you know how they just added all that stuff? It's so good on the mobile app. Like you can actually use it in the interface and stuff like that. Five
I
years
hate
later,
the Air. I
it,
hate the Airtable iPhone app. I don't use it on the iPhone.
it's
And on
actually
the
better though.
iPad, yeah, but it's still not great. And on the iPad, I don't use the Airtable app. What I did is I created a web app for it. So I just
Stupid.
did the whole like go to Airtable, save, add to home
I
screen
was
thing.
wondering. I actually noticed that in your video.
It
It
works
was
really
very
good.
smooth. But like
It works really
do
well.
you know that now in the table view you can tap on cells and change the data? Which oh
Oh,
my
that's
gosh,
good.
that's the most
I
simple
can,
thing in the
that's so,
world.
that
It's an
was
actual
really,
functional app. So like
It was
It's
sad
great
that there were
actually.
actually like pieces of Airtable, a service I use every single day. So like my Airtable data, I have two big Airtable databases. I have one for all my video projects, and that includes videos I'm working on, ideas, sponsors, stuff I would like to cover. And then I have another database for income tracking for the business. So money that comes in and stuff I need to expense for the business when it comes tax time.
Nice.
So I use Airtable every single day, and it is so frustrating to use on the iPhone. And I gave up on the iPad app.
Well,
But the
that's
Safari
why I tried
web,
to tell you about
so
it, because I fully gave up as well. Like, and
yeah, but
it's like I literally don't even believe still that it's usable because I'm so it's like just like shortcuts. I'm
but
so burned sometimes.
I will say the Safari using Airtable through Safari on the iPad is very usable. It works great. I don't have any issues with it.
I think I couldn't scroll sideways, and I
I
have a
think
lot of
that's
cells.
fixed.
Okay, maybe
I
that was part of it.
because
I
I
got
don't
burned
have
by
a
that.
ton,
So
I don't have a ton of side scrolling, but I do have some, and I don't think I have my iPad right here. Why don't I just
yeah,
look?
that's a good point. I guess we could just test it.
I know, instead of me sitting here being like, I think it works. Well, I don't know. Let me just talk out of my ass.
By the
Let's
way, I
see.
do just to like I do want to keep interacting with people in the chat because I
Yep,
keep forgetting
it
to do
works.
that. And okay, it
Oh
does
yeah,
work. Nice.
it does work. I can totally. I'm scrolling my finger and I'm using universal control, and it works via universal
Yeah,
control.
universal control is so sick.
Is dope.
Okay, let's answer Joe's question before we move on too quick. If
Okay.
iPadOS gets external monitor support, do you think app windows will be freely resizable, or do you think they'll be locked to similar sizes like split view? I have no idea what they might
I have
actually
no
do.
idea,
What I
honestly.
want is probably
I
that.
want I want freely resizable, 100%. I want freely resizable because like there are some apps, Twitter, that does not do well on a full screen iPad. It's good, and there's no way Twitter will update to support external monitor support on an
I
iPad.
mean,
Like that
I
that
think
is not.
at least ideally the goal is that developers won't have to at all because of resizable windows already being on iPad, and it will just like that's why I was just thinking if they had like templates or like snap things or like center column +2 on the sides. Even now that I just
I so
wait. I just thought of something that's in shortcuts. There's a glyph of an iPad with 3 columns. That doesn't make
oh.
sense on the iPad.
Well, unless it's
I
split
wonder
view
if
and slide
some
over,
yeah, but
unless
it
that's what it's
doesn't
trying to
it would
depict.
like I mean maybe they're like imitating that even though it wouldn't technically fit, but I'm just very curious because sometimes there's been things in shortcuts that didn't make sense until later. Like take screenshot for example was in on the iPad before the Mac app came out, and it's just not a very good iOS action because it's if you run it, you
Yeah,
take a screenshot of the shortcuts app. So
of
like
the
there's this whole
shortcut.
like
It
mentality.
doesn't.
It makes sense on the Mac though, and so I wonder if that's how I'm totally like just making this
Let's
up.
let's
But
let's read the tea leaves here for a
exactly.
second.
Let me look at all
Um,
the icons
so
now.
I've been saying for a
They're like
while, at
frantically
least.
changing it. Like, oh snap!
So I've
Okay.
been saying, and I think Viticia said this as well, that split screen, like 3 split screen apps on the iPad would actually on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro would make sense because like then you could have like iPhone, like
Totally.
3 iPhone columns. So maybe that could be what it's referring to, like an iPad OS. Like it was supposed to be an iPad OS 15, but it got dropped because it didn't work right, and that
Maybe.
could be it.
I mean, it's like
Um,
just a good looking version of like you said, split view and slide over.
yeah, I hmm. I I'm curious. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not even convinced that they are adding external monitor support at this
That's
point.
fair too.
Like I'm hoping. I was talking to you and Alex a couple weeks ago, and I was talking in the Mac Stories Discord a couple days ago, and like I was saying, this is kind of the make or break year for the iPad. I think for
Yeah.
a lot of people that this like there's been things people have been asking for years now, and the last 2 versions of iPad OS haven't exactly been thrilling.
Yeah.
Um,
Widgets.
I mean, yeah, but here's the thing: the widget support we got on iPad OS this year, this lot in iPad OS 15, we kind of should have gotten an iPad OS 14. Like, let's be honest,
That's
it should
fair.
have been an iPad OS 14 because it was in iOS 14. So like I was excited in the moment, but now that we're kind of away from it, I'm like, that should have been in 14.
I mean,
Um,
I think they did the thing where they give it a first version to developers so that when the real version comes out, it's already ready. But I definitely think sort of just the hype. I don't know. Like I still never put out my like huge like 15 screen widget video because I've also like it just kind of didn't work at a certain point.
yeah,
So like it was a bad idea to just tell people to do all that. I still have now like 10 screens at least, and it is working, but I think just like stacks and all that, and I think it
stacks
needed
on stacks
focus
on stacks
modes
on
is really
stacks.
what it was. Focus modes is what made widgets work because then you can have lots of home screens and just bring up the one. Do you agree, Chris?
Yes, focus is the best feature in iPad OS and iOS and Mac OS 15. Like all the updates, focus was the best thing to come out of this last
Yeah,
year.
and it was
Uh,
exactly like I was saying. It's exactly fit what widgets promised, at least for me, and shortcuts and all of
yeah.
that. For sure. Sorry, keep going
Ye
on
No,
on
no,
focus modes.
Jamie asked in the chat, what is Airtable? Airtable is a database service, that you can use to kinda, like, lay out data in a Excel-style spreadsheet.
Totally.
Really, really nice service, and you can get really customizable. They have an API, so you can use it to use shortcuts to add data and stuff into it. Um,
Their
I'll show
API.
you it on Friday, Jamie.
Oh, is that okay? Nice. That's Jamie. Nice to meet you, Jamie. It's a it works with your own data through their service to interact with their API to work with shortcuts. So it's really helpful because it's not just random examples. It's like your actual information already.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's really impressive, and there's different layouts and stuff you can do. So like there's a Kanban view and a calendar and a grid view and all that stuff. And
Nice.
I use it. One thing I really want, and there are services out there like Notion and stuff like that that bring in Airtable and task management and note taking and writing, but none of them are quite good enough.
Yeah.
Like Craft is kind of there, but its table stuff isn't good enough.
It doesn't have
Notion
the
has
database
a lot of the
side.
link. Yeah, it doesn't have the database side. Notion is good
Notion
for
is
like the
like
database
Notion is
side,
kind of the best right
but
now
the
in
writing,
terms of
I
being an
hate the
all-in-one.
I know, but I hate like writing in Notion. I hate writing scripts in
Well,
Notion.
they fixed the um text selection problem.
But does it show plain markdown or does it render out the markdown?
I'm not sure. It probably renders it and that's
See,
what I
that's the
would
thing.
prefer honestly. So like,
Really? Oh,
yeah, I'm not a true Markdown. I mean, I use Markdown and I think it's the best. I can export in Markdown. I will only use an app like if I don't know what Markdown export is like in Notion, so I'm not necessarily recommending that for that exact reason because if I can't get it out in true Markdown, then it's a waste. And like
yeah.
Ulysses has, I think they might have actually solved all their problems with even
I thought,
images and things like that was what I had
yeah.
problems with. But
I'm super curious. I've been playing around with Obsidian a bit more, but my problem with Obsidian is it still feels very beta-y, and I'm like, I don't really like. Yeah, I like playing with software, and that's a big part of my job. But do I want the core piece of like, because like note taking and writing notes and writing scripts is the like a big core part of my job. Do I want that to be on a piece of software that feels like a beta still?
I mean, especially since it's not perfect for iPad, maybe not.
Yeah,
And this is
I mean,
honestly like
it's gotten a lot better on the iPad than in, like, the last few months. Like, it has
that's
gotten a
fair.
lot more
I don't even
stable,
really use it.
but it's not a native app by any means. I don't even think it has multi-window support, which was one of the things that just absolutely drove me nuts because, like, one of the things I like to do with the iPad, since you can have multiple windows of apps, is I like to combine them together
Do you use that
and
shortcut? The split screen
yeah,
apps? Nice.
I
I'm
use that
curious.
one. So I have one called TaskCal, a shortcut that's TaskCal. And basically what this does is it launches things into the two-thirds view. I almost said turd view. Two-thirds view and
Good
FantastiCal in
thing
the
you didn't say
one-third
that,
view.
by the way.
Yeah, good thing I didn't. I didn't actually say it. live, unfiltered,
That
coming at you.
shortcut action, by the way, have you noticed that it says 1/3 and
Yeah, it's
2/3,
backwards.
but then
It's
when you put
backwards.
them in, it's the opposite. Yeah, I
Yeah,
submitted
it
feedback that
drives me.
June 19th, the day after beta 1. Let
That
me
seems
just
like
go
the
find the number
like
and read it out in the air.
fix. Like, it seems so easy to fix, but
They probably didn't test it. That- Anyways, let's move on. I don't want to.
so moving
I'll just
on.
start complaining. You have to hold me back.
I'm
Hold me back
not.
now.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say a word. So how about them Airtable databases? But
Yeah, split screen
look,
though. Which ones are you using? Oh yeah, besides
so
that.
Pascal is the big one that I use. I also have one that throws drafts and things. Like I just have ones that like are basically a big combos of apps that I use a lot. The thing that I wish though is that um you could pick which instance of the window would get put in
Yeah.
split view because it just pulls the most recent one. So even if the most recent window was like in slide over or it had something like really important up, it's going to pull that window. And that
Hmm.
kills me.
Yeah. I wonder. I mean, it'd have to be like persistent at that point somehow, or there's like a
Or just
find
had a
Windows
picker. Just give it a
action.
picker.
Yeah.
Yeah, find Windows. I mean, it's on Mac. It's on Mac OS.
Yeah.
So why not the iPad? We all
I
know
mean,
the
it's
iPad's
just
better
not built
than the
for
Mac.
that, so maybe it will be soon. This is all very interesting. I mean, I feel like anything that level, honestly, and even monitor support probably would be an OS change. But even then, like you said, give us a spring treat. I guess you didn't say that. I just said that, but that's what they did
I
with
mean,
the cursor. And man, that
I'm
was
hope.
such a blessing during the pandemic. Honestly,
Oh
I was
gosh,
like,
that was like because
can
that
you?
was like right at the beginning of the pandemic. Because when they announced
Oh
that,
my god.
I was still having I still had my iPad Pro shipped to my office because I still had a day job at the time. Like
Oh,
between the time that the iPad Pro, the 2020 iPad Pro was announced and shipped, that's when the pandemic hit. And like I had to like scramble to make it was a disaster. But anyways, besides the
yeah.
point, we don't need to bring up all that stuff. But yeah, no, I would love to see external monitor support come tomorrow or be announced tomorrow and come the following week or whatever. Um, do I think it's gonna happen?
Yeah.
No, I
I
don't.
mean,
But
sorry. I did. I
I
wasn't saying yes. I was agreeing. Just that I'm not sure if it's going to either.
I don't think it will. I
I mean, it
honestly
would make
feel like
sense alongside the monitor. So
it
if they
would.
did
It
do
totally
that,
would. And I mean that's why the cursor support was in 13.4 and not 14 was because the Magic Keyboard was released then.
yeah.
So that's why. I
Oh
mean, if it
yeah,
wasn't,
that's what I
could
was
you
saying.
imagine if them could
Okay.
you imagine them releasing the Magic Keyboard but no cursor support and like, hey,
Yeah,
there's just
just
this trackpad right here.
to
We have
make.
no idea what it's for.
That's fair. I mean, that's kind of like the monitor thing. If it works with iPad, it's just like, why are you doing this again without support? It's like it's got those two almost have to go together. So if we get one, we can like immediately cheer for the other. Hopefully, but like we'll see. Well, both you and I will definitely be tweeting about it if that does happen.
Well, I don't know if I'll be tweeting during the event because I get distracted easily.
That's
My
fair.
ADHD riddled
At some
brain.
point,
I have to take notes. Taking notes, watching, and tweeting is just like one too many things for me to be able to do.
yeah, fair. You could use shortcuts during it. I don't know.
No, because I'm still having to physically write the tweet and like think of something snarky to say.
Michael Baker here is asking about doing like plain text tables. And did you ever do this with like day one back in the day with not
I never
ASCII
did it.
stuff, but
I never did with day one, but Obsidian has a plugin for this, and I
nice,
tried it, and I also tried it in drafts too. I think somebody wrote a drafts action for that. Was it drafts?
probably.
Maybe I don't know. But I definitely tried the plain text tables. It just doesn't. It doesn't quite work right. Like it's just finicky enough to like make me frustrated. So that's
Yeah,
why I kind of
I
want like I
I think
like
that's what's
Airtable for
funny
that stuff.
is like plain text is perfect, and I think that's just one of the things though is like I am all about structured data, and that's why we've been talking about Airtable is because I want metadata for days about one thing that then I can mix and match together. And so like
Yeah.
I put all my information into Airtable because then I can create columns on columns of data and insert that all in shortcuts and stuff like that that otherwise would be excessive data load. And to be honest, still is excessive data, but it's the entry part I've now like automated, and that is so sweet. Or like when it's your specific job too. For me, I'm like literally scraping the data out of shortcuts and stuff like that now. I have a new shortcut that can take a whole folder and turn it into one shortcut that has a menu to run all of those separate steps. That's like so fancy. Dude, I literally like Chris. You know me.
Don't-
I literally
yeah.
like almost cried, I'm pretty sure, because I was like, this lets me do anything that I want. And so I can automate shortcuts now, which is super cool. But like even just for more practical examples, and that's way too meta a lot of times, just like this YouTube feed, I'm pretty sure right now I could run a shortcut that gets this current URL and the title out from my RSS feed and my RSS channel, my RSS feed for my YouTube channel, and then get all that data and like log it into Airtable and things like that.
I already have a shortcut.
I mean, yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I know that I'm not just saying I just like need a specific reason to do it more or something like that too.
Yeah.
I like BlogMine can automate my blog posts and things like that. So
Yeah, I mean that's what I do. I literally have I have Zapier watching my YouTube channel. When it sees a new video posted, it tells Pushcut, "Hey, there's a new video." Pushcut sends me a notification. I can tap on that notification. It then runs a shortcut that generates a blog post from my latest video, embeds the video on my website, gets the title, gets the description from the video using regex, the
nice.
greatest thing ever invented.
Regular expressions for anyone listening or
yes,
watching.
but regex just sounds cooler, so everyone should call it regex. Because anything with an X is cool. We all know that. Like Racer X from
Basically.
Speed Racer. Like, come on. I mean, there's a reason why that's Phil Schiller's avatar on Twitter. But then, yeah, formats it as a blog post and then automatically just pushes it to my website. I literally have to do nothing. Now, there is a bug in it for some reason because on the latest video, it pulled the description from the video before that. I'm not entirely sure why. I need to look into that. But there's just a weird bug. But hey, you know, what is tech if there's no bugs? I mean,
Fair.
come on, that would just be boring.
Something wrong with the feed. But yeah, I mean, that's totally, I got to get that push cut angle too. And I told the developers they're going to come on my stream, so I'm going to do that in like the next 2 weeks, I think.
The Pushcut automation server is amazing. Please bug them to bring it to the Mac. I have this Mac Mini, and I just literally want to dedicate it to being.
That's fair.
And I was using the Pushcut automation server with an iPad, but I got a little nervous having something with a battery plugged into power all the time. Yeah. It would probably be fine.
Isn't that what your Mac
I don't want to burn down my house.
90%?
What?
I mean, yeah. It's fair. It's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what other Mac versus iPad things are there that have you been like noticing with your workflow change and just video specifically?
So for me, when I want to like really sit down and focus on writing or like planning out my week or something like that, I still gravitate towards the iPad because it's a much more focused device. When I can just have one or two things open, I really like that. The Mac is very distracting to me. Between the dock and things happening in the menu bar and all this stuff, it's very, very distracting to me. And my ADHD,
I'm looking at literally like 8 or 12 windows right now, including 4 separate versions of myself moving on the screen while I'm streaming.
Exactly.
Yes, right.
So it's like it's very distracting. Even like I would sit like I tried to sit down and write at my Mac, and I would just like click on Tweetbot or open Discord or whatever, and just be like, "Hey, what's the?" And like it's very, very distracting. Yeah, that's what I do when I'm being distracting.
Sorry, I have to make fun of you.
I know it's so stupid.
Just because we're friends, I'm so sorry.
I know it's so stupid.
No, I mean it's exactly though.
But yeah, I don't even remember. Anyways, the iPad's more focused. The Mac is super distracting, but bring Final Cut to the iPad so I can actually use the iPad for all my work.
Yeah,
that's my point.
When you're
give me my Oscar.
That's what I'm curious though. Maybe it's just because I'm doing a specific thing that requires like split focus that I do just struggle to do that when I only use the iPad. And I think like you kind of get like tunnel vision or just like you're like, I just wish there was more than just what was in this screen sometimes. Like, I think that's what can happen with me on the iPad, and especially like an 11-inch iPad. The
Yeah.
12.9, it all just depends on like the second it's like when I switch from a big monitor to the 12.9, it seems small. But if I use an iPad mini and then go back to the 12.9, I'm like, oh my God, I can like see so much.
Yeah, the iPad mini is an interesting device. I keep going in and out and okay, do I like it, but then I stop using it because and then I'll stop using it and gets out of sync, like all the apps will get out of sync and stuff. Um I think for me, like the key is to I like to have as few devices as possible, so I don't have to constantly because I'm constantly changing apps and setting things up. So,
Yeah.
for me, when I was just like iPad and iPhone, it was so glorious because I was had my core set up, it worked, and then I can add things here and there, and it wasn't like I was having to do it to 5 different devices. Um, but yeah, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro is just perfect for me when I need to sit down, bang out some work, and focus.
What about
Uh,
planning that work? Because I think that's specifically, and maybe just because I have such a like, I'm trying to do like 400 different types of shortcuts, and then there's 40 ways to run one single shortcut, which is just wild. So like,
well,
there's so much to cover that sometimes just wrangling tons of information on an iPad is what I struggle with. And I
so
like will put it in a mind map, and then that's great. But then I just have a mind map, and like doing something with that, or like I stick it into things for ages on end, and then I'm just doing that and not the actual work even. This is just my therapy session now.
yeah, no, I get it. I'm totally with you. So I just did a video. I just published it the other day. And it's kind of like a work with me on the iPad throughout the day. And part of the video is I was planning out March, like all of March, like my videos and stuff. And usually what happens is when I have an idea, so if it's a video idea, I have a shortcut I run for video ideas and it throws it in my Airtable database for ideas and creates a project and things and a script for drafts and
So you
kind of
do it all at once.
archive. Yeah, it does that all at once, and it kinda archives it away so it's out of my face, so, I don't see it until I'm ready to start working on it.
Can you be more
Uh,
specific about that, I guess? Because that's super
yeah,
interesting. Like you said, does it link back to those? I'm
yeah.
assuming because
So
I
it
just know
doesn't
that you do that. And then,
Yeah, so what it does is it gets the draft X callback URL, and then it embeds it in the Airtable database. So when I go and plan stuff or when I see what I'm working on, there's a button in Airtable that says open script, and I can just click that button and it
nice.
jumps right into drafts to that script.
Perfect. That's exact. I
Awesome.
use that exact same thing with the shortcuts URL scheme to just
Yeah.
open and run the shortcut from Airtable, which is cool.
Yeah, it works great. It's fantastic. I love it.
What about the
And
things
that
one? Does then
the thing
Airtable go
it
into
doesn't
things?
It doesn't because I was having there's not really a good way to link things to anything. I will
Yeah.
I'm starting to play around with Todoist a bit more
Hmm.
because Todoist is a lot more
To
freeing
Doist.
when it comes to Todoist. Um, yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
more freeing when it comes to not only getting stuff in, but linking to stuff out as well because they have an
Hmm.
API. So I'm kind of playing around with that. I love Things. Things does something that no other task manager does. Actually, does two things. So it has areas and projects, which I
Hmm.
love because areas I see as parts of my life. So personal, business, and I can put projects in for that, or I can just put tasks in an area, like if they're single one-off tasks. And then it also has what I like as a start date and a due date.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
great.
you can set something to hey, I'm starting to work on it today. I'm working on this today, but it's got a due date later on. And those two things combined, I've never found a task manager that does both of those things. Um, well, let me rephrase. I've never found a task manager that does both of those things, and I also like the task manager.
Fair.
Um,
That's what I was gonna say. Is things is just so good that I use it
yeah,
despite it not working well enough for automation.
yeah.
Which I
If
don't think
they're,
they totally realize that about
I know
folks
they
like
realize it
us.
because literally
That's right.
everybody
I've told
asks
them.
for the
So,
ability to pull. Yeah, no, you've asked them. I've asked them for the ability to pull tasks out or be able to link to projects or something like that. And
I mean, you can generate links. I guess I was thinking though, you could just take the Airtable project, and put that link into the note of your things,
You
which
technically could.
you
I
just have to
don't.
recreate because I do that all the time, and
Yeah.
I find that that's like the main thing is that you just can't do it like all at once. Is it's something has to happen first and
Yeah.
then get the data back,
So,
and so like and things can't get the data back out, so it usually has to end in things. But then I'm like optimizing what's in the notes of things versus Airtable and that whole overlap. And this is super nerdy, but this is because we're super nerds. So
yeah. So totally. Yeah. So I might switch to Todoist. I was also looking at Good Task because one of the things
yeah,
that I really miss about using like the built-in reminders client. So Good Task works on top of the built-in reminders client. So if you add something like via Siri, it also gets added into Good Task. And I really like I've got HomePods throughout my house. So like I really like the ability to just yell in the air and be like, hey, remind me about this
yeah,
thing.
exactly. I
Because
love that too.
yeah, it's a key feature for me. Now, I don't like I know some people like split their like task manager database, like they'll use things or they'll use Todoist or something, but then on top of that they'll use reminders for like Siri related stuff and I just
Pretty
don't
much
want to
me.
do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I don't want to do that. Because I will forget to check one. Like I will not check
exactly.
one and then I'll forget tasks. So I have shortcuts that can kind of do it, but a lot of times, or not a lot of times, but sometimes those shortcuts fail to run or they don't bring the data over. So it's not reliable enough for me to rely on using the shortcuts through the HomePod, which is a
Yeah,
bummer.
they've like
Um,
done a little bit better, but I've noticed
mhm.
that even like adding a reminder is slow right now for some reason, which is weird. What was the other thing? Good task in particular, I got into last fall, but I think the same thing is I put in like 800 tasks and then just didn't look at it again. And it's like the same thing where I like everything about it except for using it to get my stuff done. Like in theory, everything is perfect with reminders, except for the part where everything I don't ever do things that are in there unless it's like specifically assigned to me at a time, and I use
So
that all, which is great. So
I have the dumbest reason for hating the reminders app. The font in the reminders
mm,
app, the whatever it's called. Excuse me. Drank too much Diet Dr Pepper. That's disgusting. Um,
yeah, but the
I
font is just like not easy to read.
the font is and then they put these colors on the font, and it looks like Fisher Price, and I
Yeah.
hate it. It just like I'm like, no, this is a professional tool. I don't want it to look like my first task manager.
Nice. I like that.
I mean,
I mean, I agree. I think that's honestly now that I was just trying to process it. I like the reminders because of the import to things feature, and just because the real issue is that Siri is terrible, and like we want to use it for things and have it be the default
yeah.
option, and instead you just have to send it to something. And I don't want to say things every single time. So honestly, they maybe even could fix that, or like I feel like an over there that could happen like at this kind of event because it is just like, hey, we've been working on Siri for a while.
I think that would be an iOS 16 thing. Like, hey, because there are default. There, you can
Well,
set
they do it with
default
music
apps now.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they do it with music. You
it
have
didn't. It wouldn't
mail,
need an
and
OS update.
yeah. Well, I mean, it would need something. It would
Well, like
need it would.
this update, but like it wouldn't
Yeah,
need a full
I think
OS
if it was in
release.
this update, it would have already been in the beta though. Like that doesn't feel like something they would hide for an event. That doesn't feel like monitor support for the iPad. Like that feels like kind of because like there's already precedent for it. So there's like
Yeah,
setting a default mail app or default web browser, even
it's an
though.
easy win that they have no reason to test.
Mhm.
So
But the other issue
I don't
too
know.
is default mail apps and default web browsers, like they have a very specific URL already. So you have the mail to link or you have
Yeah,
www dot. So it's really easy to detect those and like have it open in a specific
different
app. So
thing. Totally.
Task Manager, there would have to be some kind of API or something they would all have to implement. And
Shortcuts.
then
To be honest,
yeah,
like for real though, Intense through shortcuts is the technology that allows apps to talk to each other. And so I think while it's not specifically shortcuts, but the Intense part I think is where
well, isn't that just
those
NS
mechanism.
user activity?
No, that's like one version of shortcuts, but
Oh,
there's
okay.
it's what it's essential. You're getting at the right point. Is it's like how they integrate with Spotlight and the
Yeah.
Siri suggestions and all those things. So I think that's at least what the groundwork has been laid for. Whether or not they're going to do it and when and how well, I guess, remains to be seen. So we'll see.
That,
And
uh,
it would be a big win because there's like even that of just I don't even remember why I'm using reminders anymore because it's been so long since I just started adopting Siri in for that method. And it was so good for a long time. Like I just learned from my Apple Watch. Like that's what got me into Siri because I could just capture everything right there. And at some point that process got destroyed and I just like don't trust it anymore and I don't do it at all.
that
Also I think
that's
Shortcut Sync has been destroying my Apple Watch's battery life for like 4 months straight. Um,
that is a very similar story to me. Is I was using a shortcut to basically like add tasks to things, and I was running that through Siri on my watch, and all of a sudden it just stopped working, but there was no error message. So the
yeah,
task I added was not
you
there.
just exactly, and then I don't even remember what I remember or forgot. So,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think there's lots of room for that though, and I think they have the mechanisms that didn't exist before. So, like, I see a path where these things do get better. And this all came from just talking about to do apps and how you're splitting your screen. By the way, so we've totally gotten off track, but
Yeah, we are like all over
it's all
the place
tied
today.
together because I think that's what is sort of true about the iPad experience is it can just be kind of a mess. And while we've figured out particular things that work well with us, there's a lot of room to grow in those particular workflows. Like I think the biggest thing, especially with universal control, that is going to be confusing is like which one for which task. Like you
Oh
said,
yeah.
very specific things, but like for most people, I mean, even just because you are coming from there, do you need to like take a break or anything? I see
No,
it.
I was trying to fix the because the white balance was like I was like all blown out and it was driving me nuts. So I was like trying to fix it while you were talking. I'm sorry, I was trying not to be
It's fine.
distracting.
No, I just was like, are you all right? Like,
Yep. Nope. I'm just being murdered.
the blood is draining from your face as you change the white balance. Yeah. So I just like I think that's the biggest thing that I've struggled with, kind of being half Mac and half iPad for so long, and before not even having shortcuts on the Mac at all. So like that part has gotten a lot easier, and then Stream Deck is what is like gives me the access to those things.
Hmm.
I just have too many shortcuts.
I really like that shortcuts is on the Mac. Honestly, that's a big reason why I could go back to using the Mac is because a
Same.
lot of my work happens through shortcuts, and I don't want to grab my phone every 30 seconds, or not 30 seconds, but like every 10 minutes or so to run a shortcut. Just being able to run it from the Mac or Alfred or from the menu bar or whatever is great. Um, that being said, it is kind of frustrating that it's not like shortcuts isn't in the share sheet, and then there are shortcut actions on the Mac like the Safari ones that just flat out don't work. Like it is a little frustrating that some of this stuff is there or isn't there that
Yeah.
has been like a core part of shortcuts and before that workflow, and it's just like okay,
Yeah.
so it's like it's
Those are
kind of like
oversights for sure.
you're yeah, it's like kind of figuring out what works and what doesn't is a little frustrating, but like I've gotten to the point where like a lot of my core shortcuts where they have like um pieces that either have to work one way on the iPad and iPhone and another way on the Mac. I have like if statements and get the device detail and
Yeah.
like have it go in these different paths and stuff like that. So like I don't have multiple shortcuts for multiple devices. It just the shortcuts themselves just get bigger and bigger.
Totally. It's like more and more complicated. Or, I mean, hopefully it sort of solves itself over time. I think
I
still
hope so.
though, like
I mean, it's
even
year
if I
one of
can do,
shortcuts on the Mac.
yeah, I mean less than. I think what is interesting is when it does work on both, and you can do either and both at the same time. Is it's kind of like what do I even like?
Oh yeah.
The information overload is real because there's just like too many options.
Yeah, and I love the fact you can run shortcuts from the terminal, so it allows you to do things with like keyboard maestro. So I'm starting to play. So there's no automation tab on shortcuts for the Mac, which is weird to me because that seems like the place that it makes the most sense.
Yeah.
At least for like
Let's get
timed
back to that.
automations and stuff like that. But
In
like
theory, you can still do that with the terminal right now.
so that's where I was getting there.
Okay.
So I have my M1 Mac Mini that I'm kind of like spinning up and doing some automations and stuff on, and also using it as a backup machine because I totally should not have installed the beta on my production machine. Oh well. Um
Good to know
but
that.
so I've been playing around with Keyboard Maestro and using Keyboard Maestro to automate running some shortcuts, and it works.
Yeah. Like what? Which ones?
Nothing to honestly, like, I don't have anything concrete that's, like, good. I've just been playing around with it, like, as a conceptual idea to, like, "Okay, this works. Okay, now what next?" Now that I know this works, I can, like, sit down and think about, like, "Hey, these are the cool things I can do with it." Honestly, I just
Totally.
started doing it the other day.
Are you just using the Apple script to trigger it?
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's I don't know, I have a template somewhere, and, like, all I do is just change out the shortcut name and just paste it in there, and it's like, "Okay, there you go."
Nice. Did
And it's
you
super simple, it's, like, 3 lines.
I realized something actually after watching your Stream Deck video because I do think actually the open app option, I don't know, it's so hard. I just am dealing with scale. So like I'm trying to figure out which method I should use to trigger shortcuts from the Stream Deck because of the fact that like over time I'm going to have to update this. And so I watched your video and I like did the open app method. Then I was just kind of wondering what happens if I change the title of the shortcut and the add to dock, the package references the shortcut ID instead of the title. And so
Mhm.
that's one of the problems with the AppleScript method is if you change the title, you have to go back in and change the AppleScript
That makes
to
sense.
make it work. And so in theory, okay, wait a second. Now I'm just processing that shortcut thing that I mentioned. It's based off of Federico Vitici's shortcut injector. I don't even remember what he called it. Maybe that was the name, but
I think it was yeah, something
okay.
injector. Yeah, I
Um,
don't remember. Yeah,
that
it's
could
good.
probably get the ID out. So maybe I could make a Stream Deck or an Apple
Yeah,
script thing that
you can
runs
make an
it by
Apple script
ID.
that
No, probably I don't think it's in the command
can you
line.
run it by ID from terminal?
That's the question. Or Apple
Um,
script. Let's figure this out off stream, but that's
yeah,
super
yeah,
cool because then
that would be interesting.
basically what we're trying to get is that then you can take this option and then always have it reference. It's like a universal action to trigger from the Stream Deck or from any other tool, even if you update the shortcut over time. So that's super cool. Actually, that's like a doubly solved. I thought open app solved my problem, but maybe I can even make my own ways to reference the IDs and trigger them.
So I like the open app method, just
Yeah, that's
because
better.
it's simple. Um,
I just
you don't have to
again
write Apple
scale
script,
is
but yeah,
removing
no,
a
totally.
thousand apps
But
from my dock will just take me 2 to 3 hours straight of just
But I
getting
would
code.
tell people to avoid the Stream Deck plugin that you get from the Stream Deck store. I don't know if you've tried this,
Um,
but there's a
I'll be
plugin.
fair. I've talked to the developer a couple of times. I think he is limited by the command line utility. I think it just gets
Okay,
overloaded and stuff.
okay.
So I
So
think if you are having problems with it, I can get him in contact with you to run something so he can fix it because I think he just is like testing it with people like us creates issues.
gotcha. Okay, because for me, what was happening is, like I would set it all up, and then like a day later, it would like lose connection to all the shortcuts. It would
Yeah,
just like the plugin would reset. So I was like, I didn't know if this was an issue with shortcuts or if it was an issue with the
I think
plugin
it's
or
the
Stream
plugin.
Deck or what. But
Um,
like, I kind of got frustrated with it, and I was like, okay, I'm done using this. And then I did the add to dock method, and then just did the open app or open in
yeah,
Stream Deck action, and that's pretty solid. It runs pretty quickly, so
I mean it should
I'm
run
happy.
instantly.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. And then like I've been playing
Um,
around with other stuff. I've been playing around with some like Stream Deck plugins that I found on GitHub and things.
yeah, that was another tip that I didn't know about that you can install them from somewhere else.
Yep, does
Learn.
not have to be the store. You
Um,
can.
yeah, have you done keyboard shortcuts for shortcuts? Because which is I love saying that.
No, not really, because honestly, if I'm sitting down to build a big shortcut, I do it on my iPad still because I still find like
That's fair. That's
using.
not what I meant. You
Oh,
there are keyboard shortcuts for the
oh,
action editor, which, by the way, I've
yes,
now
I know.
made Stream Deck keys for, so that I can press if and it'll put an if statement into the shortcut, which is cool.
That's
But
cool.
you can set custom triggers for shortcuts with custom key commands, let's call them, to run a shortcut. And just my main one for backing up my stuff to Airtable, I have with a keyboard shortcut. And one of the biggest things is that they stack. So you can run the shortcut, and if it's doing something in the background, you can run it again, and then you can run 30 instances, and it'll keep going. And your Mac, it also is like, doesn't seem to use that much memory. I think it might like get overlapped, but like I can log 30 folders of shortcuts at the same time, as opposed to the iPad literally taking over the whole screen and me waiting for the shortcut to finish running.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
it's
Huh.
huge. And right now, the Stream Deck, if you trigger it via the Stream Deck, it can only do them sequentially. So this is only done with the keyboard shortcut, which is just, I assume it's still just triggering the Apple script or something. I don't actually know. But pro tip right there, because if you are trying to just like process data in the background that you don't need to be there for, you can just kick it off and it can keep going.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
We do have
I
some
see. I
comments, by the way,
don't.
that I want to get to in a
Yeah,
couple
let's
minutes.
get
So
to them.
people keep adding
Let's do.
them. I mean, what were you going to say though? I don't want to cut
No,
you
I
off.
was just gonna say I don't have any big shortcuts. So I have one shortcut that you and I worked on together that kind of runs that does that kind of thing, and it takes like so it runs at 12:10 a.m. every morning on my iPad. It grabs all the shortcuts from my library, exports them, zips them up, and saves them in a date folder because
Nice. Wait, the one that I made, you
shortcut.
use it, or is that
Yeah,
what
I
you
think
said?
you.
Or
Yeah,
like the
yeah, I
yeah
think
one of
you
the big
made it,
ones.
or we made it together, or something. I just remember talking to you about it.
Sure.
Um, and because shortcuts needs versioning. It needs versioning
Yeah.
so badly. But also because sometimes I will make a shortcut. So like I did this the other day. I made a shortcut, or a couple weeks ago, I made a shortcut for a video, and then I added something that was really specific to me, and I took my part out, but then I closed the shortcut. So I lost
Oh
that
yeah.
because when you close the shortcut, you can't undo anymore.
I mean, I
Drives
just
me nuts.
duplicate,
So
but I wonder
I
if
know
you could use my
that's what I should have.
injector method to do it
I
like
I should
automatically.
have duplicated it, and I know better. I know, but I know better,
Still,
but I
I haven't seen all
didn't.
the same.
I didn't. I got lazy, and I was like, "Oh, I'll just delete this part, share it out, and then undo." And I hit done, and went, "Oh crap!" So what I did is I went back into that version. Went back a couple of days, grabbed that shortcut, re-imported it, and it was fine.
Nice.
It was no big deal. So, like that is something that's really nice, and that's just an automation that runs at 12:10. And thanks to 15.4, I no longer get a notification that it
Yeah,
ran.
that's the big one. Is that honestly, uh, automations are being released for the first time with iOS 15. You might as well treat it that way, because I think now's the time to actually use them to the fullest.
Yeah.
That
So
otherwise would just, it's shortcuts. It's a theme of mine in some of my experience, that the more you use it, sometimes the worse your experience gets, which is not how it should work. And I think that's very temporary for anyone listening to, hopefully.
yeah, I think so too. So for those that don't know, in 15.4, you're going to be able to turn off the notifications when a automation runs. So like a timed automation, you can set it up so that it runs without you having to interact with it. But how it's worked in the past is it would still send you a notification when it ran. Well, now you're going to be able to turn those off. You'll get a summary, which is still kind of annoying, about like, hey, this
And
shortcut ran,
do you
but
think I?
it's
What's
so much
ironic is
better.
I want more than that. I don't know which automations ran now. I just
Yeah,
know that a
because it
bunch
doesn't tell
have.
you. Yeah,
So
it
like
doesn't tell you.
they went to like, it always notifies you, to now there's no way to check, which I think is
Yeah,
dangerous.
it's so
Honestly, like
funny.
I don't
It's like,
totally
why even
understand.
bother? Like, I'm
I
like,
mean, they can
okay.
fix it again, but
At least when you tap on that notification, it should just bring up a log of everything that ran.
yeah, they
Like,
just
that's
need
what it should
they
do.
need a console in general for shortcuts
Yeah.
to be able to understand what's been going on, and just like a history. I mean, the recently run thing, I guess I never even, because there's no automations on the Mac, I've never checked whether the automation running puts the shortcut into that list.
I don't believe it does.
And even now I'm curious if run shortcut, that as a subroutine does. How have I
I
never?
don't
Yeah,
wait.
pr-
Recently run. Where do
on
you
the
see
Mac.
recently run?
Um,
I
it's
was
in
looking at the
the
iPad app.
menu of shortcuts. You have to add it to the sidebar. And
Oh,
this is how I know what's going on with my sync problems, because it'll tell me that 400 shortcuts have been modified in the last day, and that is not true. Like every single day it happens. So sorry, I just literally don't even want to complain because I will just be a Debbie Downer. But also,
um.
howdy kites Spongen.
All right, so we got some questions. You want to get
Yeah,
to these
totally.
questions?
I was gonna say, just going back a second ago, you mentioned that you use Airtable for bill tracking, right? Or was it expenses more
Expenses. So I
specifically?
use Airtable for like if I buy something and I'm going to expense it for my expense it to my business and like write it off on taxes. I write it in there, and then any income that comes in business related, I also put it in the Airtable database.
Yeah,
So
I
that way I
just use
can
like
see what's coming in and going out.
nice. I just use like Mint for regular stuff. It's probably not the best at all, but I used to
Yeah,
use Simple as my bank, and then they just threw us into 4 different companies, and it's been a giant mess.
yeah. I tried Mint, I tried QuickBooks, and I just didn't like. So like with this, what I did is I built shortcuts so I can quickly add stuff to it. So like I can like quickly add an expense item, or I can quickly say, hey, this income came in and stuff like that. It's really nice.
Totally. I mean, I'd honestly like want to make one for numbers because the shortcuts actions for it. Well, they still open the app, which is again one of those things that I don't know why it does it,
Why?
but you can do it is insert stuff into specific tables and specific rows and sheets, and
That's
like
nice.
um that's just weird though. Yeah, I'm not sure why it kicks it open still. I feel like a lot of the Apple apps still haven't implemented iOS 15
Notes,
APIs, and
notes, and
reminders we
rich
got it
text.
actually, but and then I
Yeah,
still it was like so late that I hadn't implemented it yet. But I've got some
I
GTD
want
type things for notes or for reminders coming soon.
I want rich text for the Notes app. I want rich text support for shortcuts and the
Oh
Notes app
yes,
so
totally.
badly because it's a rich text application, but the shortcuts actions only support plain text. It's like, what are you doing?
And that's the it is the workflow action and for all intents and purposes. No, that's not true. They added
No, because
define
it came
nodes,
after.
but the
It came.
insert thing doesn't do anything. It does have the parameter to do it in the background, but it doesn't do rich text. I think. I
No,
think.
you can't pass rich text into Notes via shortcuts at all.
Yeah.
I've tried every
Well,
method
yeah,
I could
exactly.
possibly think of. It will not accept rich text at all.
I think the biggest thing is that people would try to pass images, and there's not really a way for any application on iOS to accept multiple types of content simultaneously. And so I do think this is like a deep cut for shortcuts. The content engine that is how workflow was built and how shortcuts, I assume, is still being continued to build because you can use the view content graph in any
Mhm.
step in shortcuts and see exactly what code is being passed from a separate service like NSURL and those kind of things. And you can see how it chooses between text or rich text or images. But there's no like uh text bundle is the file format to put those
Yeah.
things together, but that's not like a universal format. And so, and for some degree, I mean, rich media technically can have images, but I don't think Apple has built, at least not the way it's built on iOS. And so they need to update that. Like that would be a developer thing for iOS 16 that I would love to see is just like the content engine as a feature of iOS and the Mac, and everything can flow through that middle. Like that is how it's built through shortcuts. Developers just need to declare their content types, but there's no like universal, or I mean, obviously it can't be universal because that's the nature of
Yeah.
media, but some sort of universal interchange, which is again, shortcuts is kind of laying that technology. So I think that's what's super cool is that all of that is like very close, but in theory, and we've had the groundwork, and specifically with the iOS 15 ways that they told developers to make apps, like shortcuts hadn't even the shortcuts team hadn't even figured that out for themselves. They hadn't published it for the own teams to understand how to use shortcuts. And I think most third-party app developers also don't, of like finding data, working with it, like that thing that you and I do that people who don't use shortcuts are like, what are you even talking about? Because they just want to go from A to B with a Siri shortcut kind of type thing. So that was a super long-winded answer to bill tracking stuff. but
Yeah,
part of
I
it
mean,
is that
my
you
my
can do
other
these
answer.
things on your own with shortcuts, even without an app. So I don't know.
My other answer is if you're doing the billing, if you're the one doing the billing, get an assistant.
Yeah,
I have
fair.
somebody do all my billing because I don't want to do it.
That helps too. I mean, that's a privileged answer. I'll say
I mean,
I don't
yeah,
have an
but
assistant.
I mean, like,
That's
here's
Mint
the
is
thing.
my
I don't.
assistant, and I just
Yeah,
give up my data. So
I just straight up do not want to deal with hunting down and getting bills paid. So I
yeah.
have somebody do that. Like, I have better things I need to focus on. So
Here's this other comment, just about ADHD and working from the iPad. And I mean, he's asking, would a Mac app with the full screen experience? I'm actually one of those people who uses Mac apps in the full screen. I feel like it's
really, I don't like it.
yeah. I think it's
I
there's
don't.
a whole thing in like the Apple community that's like you use the system features. Like it's
Ew,
sorry,
you
I'm
use
poking fun.
Spotlight?
Yeah, it's like
Ew!
yeah.
You don't
I
have
don't. Okay, I
bartender
will say I
installed?
don't use split screen on the Mac because it's just not
Yeah, it's
good.
not.
And
It's
so
not. I
like
mean, it's gotten better in whatever we're currently on, Monterey.
I think also just to
Because it.
clarify my point with that is I think people who don't like full screen are showing their iMac privilege because that's full
Oh,
screen is
yeah,
terrible on a
that
giant
was.
screen, but anyone with a laptop probably uses full screen like to put the music app over there or whatever, like out of the
Yeah,
way. And it's all
yeah,
trackpad stuff, so don't come at
yeah.
me with your iMac your big monitor
I
anyway.
was just gonna say, like, when I use my Mac, I'm usually sitting at a big monitor, and that's a
So
majority of the way I use it. So, like,
it's the not even I don't know. I think it's a thing like with designers too and people who work at corporations is like they're like legally required to use ergonomic devices and they can't use a laptop full time and things
you
like
have
that.
no idea. Oh my
I
gosh. Okay, so I can tell the story now. Because what are they gonna do? Fire me? My
I
last
can see
IT
it.
job. My last IT job. Anyone like twitched about like a back pain or anything, and it was like, okay, here's a standing desk, ergonomic
Oh yeah, I
keyboard,
mean that's
ergonomic.
I
Here's
did that.
thousands of dollars of gear. And
I
it's
mean
like,
that's a great strategy if your company requires it. Is you're like
but the annoying thing is, I was the one that always had to set it up, and I have a bad back.
Sorry, that's pretty
Hated
funny.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's brutal.
Yeah, I know.
Workers
I was
comp.
always, yeah, I'm the one that's having to carry, like, move these standing desks around. Standing desks are heavy.
Yeah,
They're
I
heavy.
mean they're wild. What are other like ADHD type things with shortcuts though? Because I mean, like in theory, that's what it's perfect for. The problem is that if you just spend all your time making the shortcuts and not
Yeah, that's the
the
problem is I will spend all my time making shortcuts, and then I will never actually solve the problem that I needed to solve.
fair enough.
Excuse me.
I was gonna say I
Mm.
do want to wrap up soon because we have been going for a while.
Yeah,
If you're getting tired,
I am. I've been up since really early this morning, so yes, that would be great. And we can do this again, absolutely.
sure. Let me answer a couple more comments real quick. Just that craft templates. Did you see this? Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't totally solve what we were talking about. And of course, I replied to their tweet being like, "Now add it to shortcuts so I can insert." Or like they didn't do the custom ones. So
hmm
I think that will actually solve a good um,
yeah. I mean, you
part of
could.
that problem.
That's good.
You
I
can
need
get
better.
sort
I
of the
need better
same end
database.
result, but yeah.
I need a better database service.
I mean, Airtable is what I think both is kind of what I'm doing, and I think it works well. I think just like they could be more integrated, like you said, as a Notion style thing. It's all, I think these are things that will fall into place in the next year or two, but right now it's still, those apps are kind of finding which
Yeah.
ones make sense for them. By the way, also
Mhm.
that makes me think of Airtable interfaces you should check out because it's a
I know I've been
way,
meaning to.
yeah, you can basically like design an interface for that database and give yourself a rich text area to take those notes in, and then it all looks the way you want, kind of like Obsidian style, maybe ish. I mean, I don't even really know because I don't use Obsidian, but if you're
Mm.
interested, I'd be down to stream setting them up together because I did a little bit for my shortcut stuff, and it's
I'm just thinking like my
great.
database. Like
You could have a
I need to
projects
play around with
view
it.
where you can
Yeah.
actually look at all the data just for one project, and it's not just opening the thing on top of your database. It's a whole interface. So you should also even Aaron, who I think he works there now, could just literally show you it on their stream or something like that too. He's awesome. He's one of us automation nerds. So
Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah, that would be interesting. I need to play around with it. I know I keep seeing it and I keep meaning to play with it, and I just haven't had a chance to do it. It's been busy.
yeah, I mean, you got some legit reasons for that. So I feel like this is probably good for now. I mean, obviously the iPad could replace your Mac depending on your specific workflows, and the Mac can replace an iPad. And
Yeah, I mean,
I
it
think
just use
universal
the computer.
control is going to be the
This
big
is
deal
this
for
is
both.
my answer. Use the computer you want to use.
I
That's
just
it.
need
Use
see.
use,
I'm
use the
trying
one you
to.
want.
I just need to be just getting more specific. I think is what this like argument needs now because of continuity and in handoff and sidecar and universal control too. So like I think that's what is so great about your channel is like you just illustrate those specific points and go through it, and then some parts the iPad currently isn't setting like the high bar for video professionals at a certain degree, and then I think something like Final Cut could bring that back into being totally the realm of possibility. And like I feel like the M1 iPad was like actually for Hollywood pros to use as that screen, and
I
hopefully
mean,
iPad pros
that was
will be.
literally my tweet before that event when everything leaked right before the event, and we got like, oh, it's getting a mini LED display, it's getting the M1 chip, or like the same like powerful chip, it's getting and then there was, what was the other thing? Oh, it was like upgraded cameras and all this stuff, and I'm like, this sounds like a video editing device. Like, this is
Yeah,
what I want from a video editing device.
well
And
it's
like,
but for them it's part of the Mac based workflow where you use the iPad on set, but you use the Mac too. So I think that's what this last year. I like how I'm just getting into the main thesis of the point of the video or the stream, but it really did feel like I just fully realized that like almost no one there treats the iPad only as like the way it is, and
yeah,
for a lot of them it has always been the device that you use in addition to your Mac. And so I think what universal control is sort of bringing, I think it obviously requires a Mac, so like that alone
that bums me out.
still is there. I think it does make sense that like I
But
don't
it would be
know
so cool if I had two iPads next to each other and I can just bounce
so
back and forth
I
between the
think they
two.
could
That's
just
what I want.
I bet they'll do that after the M1 lines are out for a while. Because just the main thing is no other iPads except
But
for that 12 point.
but the
That's
universal
fair. It's
control isn't.
not.
It's not limited to the, because like I did
iPad
it with
already has
the.
memory issue. I don't know. The part of it even maybe comes back to the part about there's no existing way for iPad to do that, and so, but there is from the Mac, and so they made it possible from where we are to like something new. But in order to fully create something new from the iPad, they have to get us to what I just the where we are point of like we're not there, and so it does take like that step over step iteration. I do think I mean, it's kind of just wild though. Universal control, like the mixing and matching of devices is so good now. Like with, because
Yeah,
I don't know if you have, I guess you have the laptop too, but like using the
yeah.
laptop with an iPad mini and then my big Mac with the 12.9 inch is like, it really just scales throughout the whole system
And you
extremely
can
well right now. The problem is you just need multiple devices, and so like
Yeah, and you can
it's
pair
expensive.
multiple iPads to one Mac too. Like you can do like two iPads to
Oh yeah,
one
you can
Mac
do
for
three
universal
still.
control. Yeah, that's
They took
cool.
that away by the way, and they brought it back. You
Yeah,
can't
I
and
bet it was
Macs
fun.
interchanged, although you can't do two Macs and two iPads, or I don't remember.
Hmm.
It's wild though. Like so that's what I mean is it's like I've got the iPad mini here with the YouTube video going of whatever, and then over here is the iPad, and I'm using that as well. Plus something's going like the Mac is happening. I think that's why it's like it really is like you were saying choose which device, and I'm like okay, let's get into it though because there's
Yeah.
like I have so many options that it's like there is like or
Yeah,
like the perfect cross device workflow is hard to figure out.
it is like when I sit down to like do some work, I like think for a second now, like which device do I want to use? Most of the time it is the iPad if it's just like writing or email or admin tasks or stuff like that. But like if I'm also like, okay, I need to shoot off some emails, but also I need to edit some photos, like a thumbnail photo and do a little bit of video editing and stuff like that, then it's like, okay, well, I should probably just grab the Mac because I could do that all there. So like yeah, there is that bit of like what device should I grab, and that was one of the things I hated when I was
It's decision
before.
fatigue.
Yeah,
Like
like before, like when I was using both an iPad and a Mac, not this time but like 5 years ago, I hated that. I was like, which device should I grab? And it's like I love them all.
to well,
But
like I think that was a big thing is until universal control, it's either, and now it is both. And so
yeah,
before you had
like
to make this decision, but now it's a different decision that's like bigger also, and it's still good and it enables a lot more. But I think it's just like brand new. Like how to use an iPad and a Mac at the same time is something that I've only now done for 4 weeks, and like that is just like a paradigm shift that I think people aren't prepared for. Like I think
yeah,
it really like the iPad has been you need to pick between one, otherwise you're kind of out of luck, and then or you're switching a lot, and now it's both, and that really I think is going to be like a big deal in how the iPad can still be the iPad Pro and can get up to that scale. And then you're just like, I just feel like using a monitor right now. And even monitor support too. Like, oh, it is wild and it's so complex. So I'm
honestly,
excited for tomorrow.
tomorrow
Yeah.
I'm trying not to get my
That's fair
hopes up
too.
for
I'm
tomorrow.
just excited for when
So
this happens.
trying
Um,
because I don't want to be let down. Because I don't. If it
you
please let
don't
it happen
believe it?
tomorrow. I no. Here's the thing. I want to believe. I really want to believe, but also part of me is like manage your expectations
Totally.
because what are the odds we get
We'll get it next year.
a
That's the
monitor,
iPad.
and like we get a monitor, we get external monitor support for the iPad, Final Cut, like that.
It's almost too good to be true. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm just like
Um,
that. Just seems like
I hope we
way
didn't
too
get
much.
anybody else's hopes up.
I
But I
hope
think
not.
what's cool is like at least what we said is if something is happening now, it at least sets the stage for these things to be possible in the next year or two, and that stuff is very exciting. And like
Yeah,
you can get into it now and what's close to it, and then when it comes, we'll be ready. So I feel like that's what the zone that you and I operate in.
just part of me is just tired of the it's gonna be next year.
I mean, yeah.
It's gonna be next year. I'm kind of tired of that.
Well, that's why that was just us saying that though, and Apple really did never said anything close to. So
Very
that's kind
true.
of the part of like
Yeah, very
we've
true.
been like hoping that the iPad is on the cusp of this, and now it actually might be, but we're all using Macs now, so like it's kind of fun. But that's why Universal can like last year this time you and I were like, what do we even do with the iPad if shortcuts? I mean, like, and shortcuts wasn't really there, so like I don't know. And now Universal Control threw a wrench into all of that and kind of fixed it. So I hope the iPad could have been done for without something like this, and now I think it has a realm to grow. I'm being dramatic. Like I'm
Yeah,
in people's minds, it could have been done for because the Macs
I
are so damn good. Like
I will say this. I think this needs. I don't know if it will or won't, but I think this needs to be the year Pro features come to the iPad for iPad OS 16. Doesn't necessarily have to be
Yeah.
15.4. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be disappointed if tomorrow there's not some hidden feature that's not announced. But for iPad OS 16, I feel like this has to be the year some pro features like external monitor support and a better Files app and some sort of pro creative app comes to the iPad because
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, like, I'm just like looking at it and I'm like, I love this device, but what like
I
this?
think
I mean, like, look, I bought a two
so.
terabyte iPad Pro. You can look up the price on what that thing costs. Why did I buy that?
After the fact is when I can
And
admit that I
yeah,
realized those problems, but I think what's hard is like the iPad Pro power user and the iPad only lifestyle that or like that mindset that I had and I feel like you probably had. I think that is what has a shelf life. I do think the iPad though fitting into the whole ecosystem is where it's going to be at its best
yeah,
soon and they can but like the Pro in iPad Pro still needs more work for sure. And like
yeah,
there's it needs
and
to
I know.
rise with the Macs in sorry, I'm doing it over here in lockstep so that people can just use it.
And I know I know pro in iPad Pro is a marketing term. Like I know that came from the
I mean
marketing people.
it works.
But
It
at the
mattered.
end of the day, if you're going to use the word pro in something, you kind of need to be able to back it up.
Yeah.
Like the MacBook Pro can back up the word pro. The Mac Pro can back up the word pro.
I think there's still at least with launching the M1s when they did and I think they're still in that realm. I don't think they're behind necessarily from where they've set the path, but this is just the time of year where we're kind of being like, all
Yeah,
right, like,
yeah. I
what's
mean,
the gif of
to be completely fair, this is the time
Justin?
of year we're all bored and we're like, come on, give us something
Yeah,
to talk about. Like, I want something to do.
that's why
What is
this is the
happening?
zone for shortcuts. Is it's just like, except that if it
Yeah.
was actually stable at this point.
Yeah,
So
the
hopefully
problem
we
with
get some
like
more of that.
just I feel bad for you most of all because the problem with shortcuts is there's really only like one time of year you get one good update and then maybe you might get a couple of actions sprinkled in here and there. But
This is
like
automations is good. I think that the big thing is just that shortcuts does the difference is hardware users only get 4 updates a year. I can make shortcuts every single day, and so
that's why
like
I focus
that's
on software.
yeah, like that's why the software side is so much more relevant to
Software
me.
side's the
Is I can
best.
change it now just from this conversation or your video. I can change how I use Stream Deck and I think what's cool about the Mac too is like that added hardware aspect or the pro stuff. But I think that's where we're kind of reaching that convergence and universal control will actually like make I think it will make developers invest in iPad Pro too because it's like a legit device for them to use as well. So
Yeah.
I'm super excited. Universal Control alone coming out tomorrow. I feel like we're talking about that like it's been
Do
out,
you think
but
it's
like
gonna be
that's
tomorrow or do you
or
think it's
no,
gonna be next
sorry.
week?
They're going to announce it when it's coming out tomorrow. I
Oh
keep
yeah,
saying that,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
tricked myself into thinking that it was coming out tomorrow. So I'm like, nice, I get like extra
I'm still
time.
on the fence.
They
Honestly, I
could do
kind of
it.
wanted to have my video ready today just in case it did come out tomorrow, but I wasn't able to get to
They're
everything,
gonna.
so that's fine. But
This is, I'm gonna. The cynical side of me says that they're gonna drop it tomorrow during the event, and then the hopeful
jeez, don't say that.
trusting. Hopefully, then maybe I don't actually trust it, but hopefully it comes out next week instead.
I'm hoping it comes out next week, but I don't think it will. I kind of have a feeling because I planned
It's
on it
gonna.
because I didn't get to everything. I kind of have a feeling it's going to come out tomorrow.
I'm we're just burned. I love it.
No matter which
Uh,
way, like burn, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
exactly. I feel like that's the story of iPad users. I'm just kidding. Well, I
Honestly,
love
at this point, yeah.
sort of,
Like
but
I
we
love
can.
my iPad. Please, nobody think otherwise. I
I know
love the
that's why,
iPad.
as it's like we
It's
just want to.
I love it so
I
much,
just
and I
want to
want
like not
it good.
have shackles on from what I'm doing, and that's
Exactly.
I feel like what
And
happens with us.
that's one of the things. Like I've been using the Mac now, and I don't
That's
feel
great.
like I have shackles. I can run terminal stuff, and not that I'm asking for terminal, but like I can install apps that aren't from the Mac App Store. Don't tell Apple.
Ooh. I haven't. Do any of those have shortcuts yet? I don't even know. Now that I think about
Um,
it, I haven't just thought of that, but I'll look
Here's
into
the
it.
problem. I don't remember which apps I've downloaded from the Mac App Store and which ones I've
And then
downloaded from
I always
developers'
just
websites.
update my Mac, and then I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot about all those. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and then it's like, oh, and then the one thing that I do like about the Mac App Store, if there's one thing I can say about it, is it handles all the updating of the individual apps. So I don't like when I open an app, I don't get a pop up of, hey, there's a new version, download and install it. No, the updates
hmm.
happen in the background, and I don't see it. I don't have
Yeah,
to
that's
worry about it.
nice.
So I do like that about the Mac App Store, but there are shackles on apps that go in the Mac App Store that I do not think there should be shackles. Like the
That's
Mac
fair.
is a much more open
I was referring to
platform.
the iPad, I guess, but
Oh, sorry, my bad. Whatever.
we've got limitations on all of them, but I feel like I can see that the sun literally went down where you are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
It's
I
getting
feel like
dark.
we should wrap it up. But
Yes, because I need to eat something. I'm hungry.
this was good chatting with you, man. I
Yeah.
like doing this, and thanks everybody for chatting. I feel like I always forget for like the first 15 minutes to interact with the chat, but sorry about that. But it's nice to
Yeah,
have you all
I'm
hanging
used
out
to
with
doing
us.
scripted videos and not having a chat, so sorry.
Yeah, exactly. But this was good, and yeah, we'll have to do this sometime soon.
Absolutely.
All right, I will see you on Twitter tomorrow, I guess.
See you on Twitter, tweeting snarky stuff.
Exactly. All right, see you everybody.
All right,
Cheers.
bye.